Mock 1. This is for the sports classes, and your A&P, you get 25 questions. One is on massage, that's the last question, and you don't get any on disorders and diseases, or you don't get the reproductive system, cells, you get cells, don't get hair, nails, chemistry. So what do you get? Let's have a look at these questions. We'll just go through mock 1. Which of the following tissues consist predominantly of fat cells? And you've got adipose, areola, cuboidal, dense fibrous tissue. Adipose, that's the fat cells. Number 2, which structure is known as the powerhouse of the cell? And that is the mitochondria. The mitochondria. So that's a good one to remember. Third one, the functions of the skin include, and it says movement, secretion, sodium retention and vitamin C formation. Well, we know it's not sodium and vitamin C. Movement, that would be the skeletal system that allows movement. And the function of the skin, one of them is secretion. If you remember shapes, there's one is secretion. And secretion, it secretes sebum on the skin, which mixes with sweat to form the acid mantle, and that is a protection because it protects against bacteria. So sebum production, which is, you can get too much sebum production in teenagers, which is why they get an oily skin. It's to do with the hormones. So we've got secretion, then we've got heat regulation, and that can be from the hairs sticking up to trap the air, and that keeps you warm. Or another way for heat regulation for with the skin is that when you get hot, your capillaries open and you get very red. That's because the capillaries are open to take in as much cool air and bring it back to your body, because your centre, your core, needs to be kept at a stable temperature. And then when you get cold, your blood gets shunted inside, and that's why people get very pale when it's cold, because their blood is going inside and the capillaries are tightening up to keep as much heat inside your body. So we've got absorption as well. They absorb chemicals. They will absorb like HRT patches, the smoking nicotine patches, essential oils. The molecules are so small that it will go through the skin. But there's not, it has to be very, very tiny to be absorbed into the skin. Then we've got protection from the sun's rays. We get the UV rays, and then your skin, you get the melanin within the epidermis, and that turns your skin brown to protect against the UV rays. There's also protection in fact, when you fall over, you don't just sort of cut yourself wide open. It's quite tough, your skin. And elimination is another part of shapes. You've got the elimination, which would be elimination of water, from it's urea and salts mixed for sweat. That's an excretion. And then you've got sensation. Sensation is the heat, cold, pain, pleasure, all comes from the skin. There's different nerve endings that give you the pain or the sensitivity. Good job too. So how many layers does the epidermis contain? Well, we know it's 5. What does the frontal bone form? That's a nice easy one. It's the forehead. How many pairs of ribs are there? You just have to know. There's 12. What type of joint is the knee? And there we have the hinge joint. It's not a ball and socket joint. You would have a job to move that all around. This would be a ball and socket joint because you can do all sorts of things with it, but you can't do so much there with your knee and your elbow unless you've got double joint, and then you have got a problem. This one is particularly for the sports. The others could have been for any of the exams, but this one is particular. Protraction, retraction, elevation and depression are movements of, and you've got knee, hip, elbow and shoulder girdle. Well, knee doesn't do that much, does it? It's a hinge joint. The hip, well, that will move quite a bit. Elbow, no, but the shoulder, that does everything. Elevates, depresses, retracts, protracts. So it's the shoulder girdle. What is the action of the erector spinae when both sides work together? And that is to extend the vertebral column. So that's the answer to that. Which of the following muscles crosses both the hip and the knee joint? This is one of the joint questions that sports get, and that is the sartorius. The sartorius comes, it's from your hip and it goes right the way down, and that's the one that enables you to sit down and cross your legs. Sit down like that with your legs. That's that one. And it the word come from tailors, because you might have heard of sartorial dressers. Well, tailors used to sit on the floor sewing, and they're using that sartorius muscle. What is the function of an axon? So this is a nervous system, and it's to send nerve impulses away from the cell body. Which of the following acts as a shock absorber and maintains pressure, protecting the brain and the spinal column? And the answer is cerebrospinal fluid. We've got medulla oblongata, we've got discs, we've got synovial fluid, and synovial fluid is inside a joint capsule to help your joints, but to act as a shock absorber for the brain and the spinal column, we've got a fluid in the brain in between the meninges. We've got 3 layers in the brain, and they've got this fluid in between, and then that goes right down the spinal column, and that's why they can take some fluid from the spine to find out what's going on in the brain, because it's the same fluid that flows down, so it protects the brain and the spinal column. So where would you find the pituitary? It's a hormone question, and that's in the brain, right in the middle of the brain, the pituitary, the master gland. What is the function of glucocorticoid hormones? And the answer here is to metabolize carbohydrates, fats and proteins. So that is the function of glucocorticoid hormones, and that produces your body's own steroids. Which of the following blood vessels carry deoxygenated blood to the heart? And it would be the vena cava. Here it says the superior vena cava, and say if this was your heart, then it's going to come in from the top on the right hand side, and the superior's above the heart and the inferior vena cava is below, but they both feed into the top here. So it's the vena cava there, extra large veins. So what is the name of the muscular wall that separates the left and right side of the heart? And that is the septum. Just like the septum we've got on the nose, that's the septum, and we've got a septum in the heart to separate them. The exchange of gases between the alveoli and the blood in the alveolar capillaries is known as, and it's external respiration. During inspiration, another one on the respiratory, during inspiration, what happens to the diaphragm? Well, the diaphragm is here. You've got your digestive system here, and you've got your lungs above here and your heart, and your diaphragm is a dome-shaped muscle, and when you breathe in, it flattens, and your intercostal muscles here in between your ribs expand to allow your lungs to expand to take in the air. So it flattens, and when you breathe out, it goes into a dome shape. So during inspiration, what happens to the diaphragm? It flattens out. 19. What are the functions of lymph nodes? And the functions of lymph nodes is to filter and destroy harmful microorganisms, stroke toxic materials. So that is the function of lymph nodes. 20. Where is the appendix? Well, it's attached to the large intestine. That's where it is. What is the action of lactase? And the answer is to break down specific disaccharides into monosaccharides. You just have to remember that one. Where does the majority of food absorption take place? And the majority of food absorption takes place in the small intestine. Which part of the urinary system connects the medulla to the ureter? That's a horrible one. But the answer is the renal pelvis. Now, I think somebody got that in for the massage question. So that's one that could be for anyone. So which part of the urinary system connects the medulla to the ureter? And it's the renal pelvis. Which of the following processes occurs in the Bowman's capsule? Another urinary question, and that is filtration. How does and then the sports students have got one massage question, and this is this one for this first mock. How does Petrosage help ease tension on the neck and shoulders? And the answer is, because the questions, it says by causing gentle muscle spasms. No. By gently demobilising the muscles. Well, that's an odd expression anyway. And D was stimulating nervous muscle spasms. So C must be the answer, because it's by encouraging the elimination of waste. And so they've given you the answer there by giving you 3 that it couldn't possibly be. It's really hard to set questions, and these are questions that students have remembered, and so we've been able to put them together for you to so you can practice before the exam. So this is mock 1 for the sports, but it's suitable for the other students to do as well. Hope that's helped.